I'm Elizabeth at A Literary Princess, and today I am doing my May wrap-up. So I've actually taken a week off of YouTube last week. I did not post any videos or film any videos because I was dealing with a bunch of wedding-related stuff, but I still did find time to read, and I ultimately read 7 books in the month of May, which is pretty much the average of what I've been doing for each month. So I've got 4 physical books to tell you about, and then I guess it's 2 ebooks, and then 1 that was from the library that I had to return and that I have to pay a late fee on. Oops. But anyway, let's jump in. So first up is actually a book that I was dreading that ended up not being as bad as I thought it would be. This is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. So I hated Alice in Wonderland as a child. I don't know if I ever actually read the book. I think I tried to and was just no. But I hated the Disney film. The poem about the oysters, the walrus and the carpenter, I think it's called, it traumatized me, and it was depressing and awful, and I hated it. And I hated that nothing made sense, and it just annoyed me. The best part was at the beginning and at the end with the sister who had an awesome purple dress and the cat, Dinah. Dinah's lovely. Everything else, didn't like the movie. So when I realized I had to read this for my exams because it's a quintessential piece of Victorian literature, I was like, no. But this was not that bad. First of all, it's short, so I was able to finish it in a day. I only read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I did not read through The Looking Glass, which is the one where that poem with the oysters comes in, and we're just not gonna ever do that. We're gonna leave that alone. So I ultimately gave this 3 stars. So I mean, yes, there's nonsense in it, but it's actually way less nonsensical than the Disney movie. And here I am, of course, talking about the original Disney movie that was animated, not the one with Johnny Depp, which I also didn't like because I don't really like Alice in Wonderland, and it didn't make sense either. But anyway, so the book makes a little more sense. It didn't feel quite as stupid. I mean, it's nonsense, and Alice says that. So I ultimately liked Alice a lot more than I did in the movie. In the book, she just like calls people out about not making sense constantly. Or I mean, of course, at the end of, when the queen is like off with her head, she goes, "Who cares for you? You're nothing but a pack of cards." And it's great. She's just like, she's kind of sick of their bullshit the whole time. And I just loved it. But what's most interesting about this, and I know all this thanks to the footnotes in the Penguin Classics edition, is that Carroll is responding to a lot of children's literature at the time. So he's parodying it, he's making reference to it, and you don't get that at all in the movie, but with the book and with the footnotes, I found it super interesting. So I ultimately ended up enjoying this. It was a lovely afternoon read, couple hours, I was done. Don't think I'm gonna read through The Looking Glass, but maybe. I know Dinah the cat makes more of an appearance in it, so maybe for Dinah, maybe. All right, next up is the one that I had to return to the library. This was Heartstopper, Volume 4 by Alice Oseman. So I've been reading that series this year, or I started it last year, rather. So the library finally got book 4 in, and I got it, and I was very happy. And I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. So the whole series is about these 2 boys, Nick and Charlie, becoming friends and then ultimately falling in love, and just kind of their life as they go through that. Nick has to come out as bisexual. Charlie is dealing with an eating disorder. There's some family problems on both sides. So this book very much dealt with Charlie's mental health and him getting help for his eating disorder, which I super appreciate. Any eating disorder representation that is good, and Oseman does a fantastic job with it. She really does. And to have a male character that has anorexia is such great representation because we never see that. It's always shown as like a woman's illness, which is not true. Men suffer from eating disorders. So I appreciate this series so much, and I can't wait for the next volume. And I know that there is the Netflix series, and I want to watch it so bad. But my fiance and I only watch things that we know the other person will like because we only ever watch TV when we're at home together. And I know he's not gonna like it because he doesn't like romance and stuff like that. He's gonna be like, this is stupid. So I haven't gotten to watch it yet, and I don't really have time to be watching TV when I am not chilling at home with him. So I don't know when I'll get to watch it, but hopefully soon, because I see like posts about it on Tumblr and it looks so cute. I want to watch it. Anyway, all right, next up was another one for my exams. This was for my feminist theory list. It's A Vindication of the Rights of Women by Mary Wollstonecraft. So this is like the first, or at least one of the first, like pieces of feminist literature, published in 1792. It says it right on the back. Nice. So Mary Wollstonecraft is, of course, the mother of Mary Shelley, and she's great. She's pretty fired up. I gave this 3 stars. I mean, it's not like it's a novel. It's not like super interesting, but it's pretty readable. And her passion for it really comes through. And she makes some great points. And of course, most of those points did not get realized until like over a century later. But yeah. So this was really good. Yeah, she's talking about equal education, women being allowed to be defined in their professions, and just basically getting women out from under the control of men. So this was great, very important piece of work for me as somebody that does feminist theory in literature. So yeah, glad I finally read that. All right, next up was another ebook that I got off my library's website, or my school library's website. I have my public library and I have my school library, and they are very different entities. So this was Edging Women Out, Victorian Novelists, Publishers, and Social Change by Gay Tuckman. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. I'm gonna be honest, I straight up forgot that I read this month because that's how long ago that was. Okay. I gave this 3 stars. So this was looking at how the novel started out as a genre that was like considered lowbrow and mainly dominated by women writers. And then as the 19th century went on, men kind of like started to invade the genre to like create the highbrow novel and ultimately edged women out of the industry. So this was a sociological perspective, which was fascinating because I obviously am a lit person. I don't do a whole lot with sociology other than in my last women in health class. That did a bit of sociology, but to see it applied in this way was really interesting. So they were going back through records with all the publishers to see, okay, how many books were published by women, how many were by men, how many got accepted that were by women, how many got rejected. And it was really interesting because it was a look at the publishing process in the Victorian era, which I know a little bit about because I just read A Struggle for Fame by Charlotte Rydell, which is a Victorian novel that actually dealt with that. But other than that, I didn't really know much. So it was very interesting to learn about. They had a lot of charts and graphs and just numbers, which ultimately kind of went over my head, which is why the 3 stars, because it's not how my brain functions. But it was very interesting, and I think it's ultimately going to be really helpful for my dissertation. All right, next up is, oh my god, I love this one. This is Phoebe Jr. by my best girl, Margaret Oliphant. Oh my god, I gave this 4.5 stars. This is I don't know if this is my favorite Margaret Oliphant book to date. I'd say it's definitely tied with Miss Marchbanks. It might be ahead of Miss Marchbanks, I don't know, but it is so good. So this follows the title character, Phoebe Jr. She's Junior because her mother was also Phoebe. And I straight up can't remember her last name, but so she goes to she like kind of lives in higher society, but her grandparents owned a shop and they made a lot of money off of it. So she goes to stay with them in the town of Carlingford, and she meets this girl, Ursula, who is the pastor's daughter, and they become friends. And so there's a lot about religion in here because Phoebe is from a family of dissenters, whereas Ursula is from a family who are part of the Church of England, the Anglican Church. So there's this this tension between Anglicans interacting with dissenters and how that's not really done. And then of course there's romance. We have Ursula's brother Reginald, who gets pretty in love with Phoebe. And then we also have Mr. Northcote, who is a dissenting minister who comes to be the minister at the dissenting chapel in the area, and he falls in love with Ursula. So we get this very interesting dynamic and interplay and question of how can these people get along and be friends or more. And then we also have the Copperheads, who are this very wealthy family, and the father and the son are kind of trying to think of the best word for this. Like kind of coarse, even though they're so wealthy. But and so then there's also the issue of money and class, and there's gender, there's issues of marriage, who is going to marry who's it acceptable for one person to marry as opposed to another. It's such a fascinating little book. Oh my God, I love this so much. Yeah, go read this. So yeah, this was probably my second favorite book of the month. I would say Heartstopper at 5 stars is my favorite, but Phoebe Jr. is literally right on its tails. All right, and then we have an arc that I read on my Kindle. This is Little Rabbit by Alyssa Sonsiridej, whose name I'm sure I'm still mispronouncing, sorry. So this deals with a unnamed 30-year-old woman living in Boston. She is a writer. She's published one book and it didn't really do well. And so she mostly just works as a administrative assistant at a university. But she falls into a relationship with this much older choreographer who's very wealthy. And this is just kind of the story of their relationship, her coming to terms with this because she considers herself a queer woman. She usually only dates women or trans men, and the choreographer is a cis man who she was initially didn't like. She was initially very turned off by him, but she falls into this relationship with him, and there are some kind of BDSM elements that get brought in, and she is struggling with that. Like, how can I want him to do this to me when I am this strong, independent woman who's a feminist and all this? And then she also has this best friend that she lives with, I think it's Annie, who really dislikes that she's getting into this relationship. And so Annie's like having a hard time dealing with the fact that our narrator is changing and kind of growing as a person and not staying exactly how they were in, I think it was graduate school. So it's really interesting. Look at all this. And I ultimately really enjoyed it and gave it 4.5 stars. The fact that our two main characters, the narrator and the choreographer, are never given names through most of the book is so fascinating, and I just loved the way that Sonseradish handled that. The way that she writes is lovely. I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was great. And I didn't really know what to expect when I went into it. So I was like, I don't know, let's pick this up. Sounds interesting. But what I found was something that was so very relevant to my own life right now. So I'm approaching 30, and you know, my life's kind of changing. I'm getting married. Friendships are kind of changing. Things are just different. And there is kind of that confusion and uncomfortableness and like, who am I? What am I doing? Is this okay? Growing as a person and falling in love. So yeah, it felt very relevant to my life and I really enjoyed it. All right, and then last up, we had another for my feminist theory list. This is The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan. This was so good. I also gave this 4.5 stars. This was a really good month, apparently, for 4.5 stars. So this is a groundbreaking piece of feminist literature that was written in the 60s and that is deconstructing this idea of the happy housewife and showing how women really can't be happy with that model and how they need more. Oh my God. I loved this. This was so good. So Friedan interviewed a lot of women, so it was really great to hear in their own words what they were feeling. And then just, oh my God, she takes down Freud, like just, it's a systematic takedown of Sigmund Freud, and I was here for it because I hate Freud. I just hate him. Not everyone wants to have sex with their mother, Freud. But anyway, yeah, so Friedan just systematically is like, here's what's wrong with him. And it was great. I was living for it. Some of the stories were really moving, and then some of it still felt so relevant to today. And it was like, oh my God. And then it was interesting because I actually, while reading this, I watched Why Women Kill, which mentions this book, and there's a part that is in 1963, and it deals with a lot of the same stuff that Friedan is talking about, but in a fictional context of why a woman would kill somebody. But it was so funny that it just got mentioned in the book. That it got mentioned in the show. One of the characters read it, and I was like, oh, I'm reading that. So yeah, I love this. This was so good. All right, and that is it for what I read in the month of May. So let me know down in the comments below, have you read any of these? What did you think? What did you read this month? What was your favorite? It's been great chatting with you all. I will see you soon. Bye.